So this week I'm going to be turning 40, and today we're going to be looking at the workflow that I used for creating the client video. Welcome back guys, it's Byron Phillips from byronphillipsmedia.com, and in this video we're actually going to be looking at Davinci Resolve and the workflow that I use to actually create and edit the videos. So the first thing you're going to want to do is actually head on over to the media tab, and this is where you're going to pull in all your footage that you took on that day. So you're going to want to make sure that everything is on your PC or Mac. You want to go to the actual location where everything is saved to, and you're going to want to start going through that media and actually start picking the best parts. Now, as you can see in this particular one, I've already gone through and I've already selected the in and out points, and then I've dragged this in, and you're going to want to do that to all the media that you have in your current library for the actual shoot of the client. The next thing you're going to want to do is actually generate optimized media. If your PC is anything like mine and it runs dog slow, sometimes when shooting 4K files it is an absolute nightmare. So what you're going to want to do is go head on up to File and Project Settings. You're going to want to make sure you're on Master Settings, and you're going to want to come down all the way to Optimize Media and Random Cache, and you're going to want to select LB, HRLB. That's what I've got selected for this one, and I find it good enough to work with when it comes to editing and color correcting. So once you've done that and you've saved everything, I'm working on a 24 FPS timeline. It might ask you to change those things, but if you're not sure what your timeline is, go back to File and Project Settings, and under Master Page it'll give you the timeline frame rate and the playback frame rate. So if you're shooting in 24, make sure that this is around the 24 mark. So the actual edit itself, the customer wanted 4 areas. They wanted products, they wanted the shop aesthetic, the community, and they also wanted an action shot of the actual customer. So the way that this is being done is that because this is all going on to Instagram, there has to be a 60-second time limit for each of the products. These are about 20 to 25 seconds. They all have an intro. Let's just expand this a little bit. So they all have an intro, and they have a main part of the actual video, and they got an outro. Now I'll quickly show how that was created. So for the intro, if I decompose that, you can see that that is actually a number of edits and text effects, and they've just been animated and keyframed and repositioned and sized in order to make that one file. And the way that you make that file is that you select all the clips and you create a new compound clip. So if I go right to the top, select all the way down, even including the audio tracks, right click, say new compound clip, and then create. And that creates this nice maintainable file that you can work with within your timeline. And it's just a simple case of dragging that and copying it to the start of each new segment. And that's this exact same thing that I've done for the outro. Now, that file hasn't changed. That's the original clip that I took in from the media. The color correction is quite basic. I haven't labeled these because I'm an idiot. But this is what it looks like before and after all the effects have been done. So this one was the white balance. This one was making sure that the exposure was set. This one here was looking at the actual contrast, which I've set to 1.2, and the saturation to 45. I've not oversaturated these images. this one was just adding a mask whereby I just wanted to make the actual product itself pop. And then the last one then is just a simple LUT, and that has been set to 0.2. I don't like setting it to the max strength because it can just ruin an image and it's way too strong for what you're actually going for. So the way that the edit was done, in order to keep this quick and efficient, you have your intro, the main body of content, and the outro. And this format was used throughout all the 7 products. Now I know she had more than 7 products, but these were the 7 that we picked on the day, and those are the actual products. The only other part that I added into this was, if you notice that there's an effect where the saturation has been set to 0, this is in fact being ramped up over a 7-second period. And this is done by keyframing in the actual color tab on this particular one. So it is 0 at the first frame, and then when we get to 7 seconds, this ramps up all the way to the 45, to the final image, and that was used throughout all of the parts. So the next video, which is in the same timeline, so I don't have to go anywhere, this was actually showing the community. The original video was over a minute long. 512, where are you? Here. So as we can see, this is quite long. And when this started from the ceiling, we went down to the actual coffee shop, the coffee shop sign, and then panned all the way over using the edit cone system to the actual barbershop located here. Because of the angle, we couldn't get much of a view of the shop itself, so a separate shot was used to cover that, which is here, and then there was another shot then inside to take a seat. Now the way I got around the 60-second time, because the original clip was 60 seconds and you've got to take into account the intro and the outro. Each of these were about 10 to 15 seconds long, and they started at the point where the last clip ended. So then that meant then I could get all the footage into a short period of time, and it didn't feel that it was being rushed. Now each of the portions, let me just get rid of the output blanking because I don't actually need it. So each of the sections, they are actually moving away from each other. Now these are just simply keyframed, and then what happens is that at each point one of those squares or screens is replaced with the next clip. So these are 4 separate videos. Well, they're the same video split 4 different ways. It's the same with the other one, and they are just literally cropped and zoomed in. So if I select this one, is that the one I want to do? Yeah, so 0.9, and then all that was happening was I was setting a crop for that. So you can see the bottom is rising up, and that was done to pretty much all of them. So that is how we got that effect, is that it's literally all you're doing is that you're cropping and keyframing and zooming in. So it's a simple approach, but it just means that we were able to get all the footage in without it going through with it too fast. And then obviously you've got the outro. So for the next one, this is talking, we are looking at the actual, so we scroll down. This was more some speed ramps and cuts to the actual beat of the song. Now the last time I played this, I had the sound way too loud, so if I give you an example. so it lulls in the actual song is actually panning. So this is important. If you notice where the barbershop sign is, each of these icons is part of the actual barbershop sign. So that is her branding, and what I've done is I've included that branding as part of the actual transitions between the different cuts. So this is one area, it was transitioned to here using the heart, the same with the scissors, and this next scene and this. So I was actually using the branding as transition cuts for all of this. Now this all goes to the beat of the song, so the actual song made it a lot easier to edit this, like this part. So this is just cutting up quicker on the beats. And that is how the actual edit of this particular video was done. It was just making sure that it all fitted in the 67 timeline and that it was actually going to the beat of the song. For the color, I've got a lot to learn with exposure, and I'll show you where I mean. So this particular scene I found not a nightmare, but at the actual site of the clients where I shot, if I take this off, that was the actual shot, and it was quite dark. Now I need to get better at exposing at the client site. So that's one thing to learn with that. And here, so this is with and without. So I still need to get better with white balancing and certain things, but I was generally pleased with that. But I am working on one or two things to help make that easier in the process. So for the next video, this was the last one. This is the actual cut. So I'm just using 2 shots again from previous shots just to show the barber sign, the seat, and then heading on into the actual cut itself. This is flowing to the song. So as you notice, the actual cuts are being done on the beat, and this is the reason why I had the output blank in, was because it was only for this particular video, so it just applies the entire timeline, so that's why I took it off. So when I rendered it, the actual output blank in wasn't on for those. This one I wanted to keep clean and simple, and that's why it's just on the beat of the music. The owner didn't want to be too much in the actual video, so that's why the shots are tighter. It's all handheld shot at 50 frames per second, and I'm generally pleased. The only issue that I found is that because I didn't have the actual monitor attached to the camera because it was handheld, I need a better way of doing that. I found exposure, getting that nailed, a little bit difficult, so that's something I'll need to work on in the future, and I've been trying that last night, trying to sort that out. So that is generally how all the images, the footage was cut. It's a very, very simple process. You don't need to make it overcomplicated. You just need to find good backing music where you can make hard cuts, or look at the branding of the shop and use those to make cuts. It's really dependent on what your client wants, or the time frame that you've got to shoot things in. So I hope this helped, and look forward to seeing you in the next one. Ooh, like and subscribe, that would be great. That would be bloody lovely. Cheers.